From the most trusted names in local news, KDPG Sunday Edition.
Good morning and welcome to the KDPG Sunday Edition. I'm Stacy Smith. It is only March of 2019, but campaign 2020 for the presidency of the United States has already begun. A large number of Democratic candidates, some already announced and others still on the wings, are ready to run against President Donald Trump. Some prominent Republicans, including former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, have said that President Trump should be challenged within the Republican Party in the primaries. Against that backdrop, there is also a special election in just 9 days to fill a Pennsylvania state Senate seat in the 37th District, which was left vacant when Republican State Senator Guy Reschenthaler won a seat in Congress. This morning on the KDPG Sunday Edition, we will take a look at the continuing political division in America and the future of mainstream political campaigns. Our guests are Dave Majernik, the vice chairman of the Republican Committee of Allegheny County, and Mike Mickes, a Pennsylvania Democratic strategist. Sally Stapleton, the managing editor of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joins us for this morning's discussion. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us on the KDPG Sunday Edition. Always trying to get ahead of the curve on the politics, and you never can because things change so quickly. But it's just great we can wrap up the program right now because Democrats and Republicans are going to agree on everything coming up, right?
Yeah, there will be no disagreements at this table. I think we can just call it a show and go home.
Well, let's delve into this, though, whether there are disagreements, as I started to say here, within each party. Dave, for the Republican Party, how much is there of a pushback right now against Donald Trump?
Well, there definitely is some pushback. I think it might be exaggerated, but there are people who have really strong feelings against him, as well as people who have feelings for him. In this area, most people not. A lot of people are supportive of him. In the southeast part of the state, there's a lot of people that, a lot of Republicans that are against him.
All right. Now, having said that part of it, in the 2016 election, a lot of Republicans felt they didn't necessarily care for Donald Trump that much, but they really didn't like Hillary Clinton. If the Democrats were to put up a candidate that a lot of Republicans would think would be better than Hillary Clinton, is that going to be trouble for Donald Trump?
Well, I think that he has a lot of support in the party, in the sense that many people may not like his personality, but they like the fact that he gets things done. You know, whether it's the tax cuts, tax reform, or recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and things like that. And I think that trumps, excuse the pun, other issues that they may not like about
I want to get back to whether he might be challenged and whether you think that would be a good idea or not, coming up in just a second. But Mike, from your perspective, there is a huge field of Democrats already because they feel this president is vulnerable.
Yeah, there is no doubt that President Trump is vulnerable. It's a long way to the election, but right now he has low favorable ratings, and that's the reason why so many Democrats are jumping in. What we're seeing is an unprecedented number of candidates, and they're diverse in race and gender and also ideology. There are some very progressive, there are centrists. It's going to be an interesting year. I can't keep track of how many there are. Just in this time we've talked, there might be 2 or 3 more. I don't know.
Yeah, by the time this airs, you're right. Yeah, it could be.
The bottom line is you're seeing a lot jump in. The question is how many of these candidates are what I would consider real contenders to be the nominee. And I think what you're going to see probably by Labor Day is, 4 or 5 of these candidates that are in may end up having to drop out because they lack the resources.
Yeah, it is a wide variety of candidates. I mean, you've got the mayor of South Bend, Indiana in this race, who, by the way, some people really do like. They think he's got a lot on the ball on that. You've got another candidate that nobody's really heard of by the name of Kang, but he has now raised enough money to be on the big stage for a debate. So you have so many different candidates, and the Republicans kind of went through this in 2016, right, where they had a mini debate with the guys who were everybody felt were going to be the also-rans. And now you've got the same situation with the Democrats. Are you going to put them all on one stage at one time?
I think what they're going to have to do is have debates in one venue over 2 nights and split them in half. You can't have a real substantive debate with 20, 25 people on the stage, because over an hour, even if it's a 2-hour debate, there's not much time for each candidate to speak. And I would favor splitting them up into multiple debates and have a random drawing, or as they're doing in this first debate, having some criteria to demonstrate that you are a legitimate candidate for the office.
That caused problems for the Republicans to a degree during the debates, if you remember, Dave, because a lot of people felt, well, this guy's voice should have been just as strong as somebody else's.
Right, and they even had the positioning of the people on the Diaz, or how based upon, I guess, the amount of money or what they did in the polls and so forth, and that caused some consternation.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can we go back to Trump's appearance recently in Ohio several days ago, where he talked about John McCain in a very disparaging way? Can you talk a little bit about how that played in Pennsylvania?
Well, I can't speak for everybody, but the thing, from what I understand, he didn't just come out and say that. He was spurred on by reporters who asked him questions, and then he kind of gives his honest answer, and like it or not. But I think that.
I guess maybe what you're really going to get to, is this going to hurt him?
Right. That's exactly what I'm getting at.
Well, that's hard to say.
It didn't in 2016.
Yeah. I actually think it hurts him in a big way. I know a number of veterans who have considered themselves Trump supporters. They still consider themselves Trump supporters, but he's really testing their limits. They're angry. They're angry because John McCain is dead and can't defend himself. There's no reason why the President of the United States should be going after a deceased former U.S. Senator, a war hero, former prisoner of war. Donald Trump would be best served by, anytime he's asked by about John McCain, just say, look, we had our differences, but he served our nation honorably, and leave it at that. But he's not doing that, and a lot of veterans are angry about this.
I think that basically most of his remarks had to do with the fact of the investigation and so forth, and the dossier, and one of McCain's aides is the one who turned it over to the FBI. It wasn't disparaging his military record or anything like that. It had to do with that
But he
issue.
did in 2016.
Yes.
And so this is why I'm going to throw this back at you, because you're saying people are upset and angry about maybe some of these recent comments. But he was not nice about McCain when McCain was alive. He made other comments during the campaign in 2016. And as much as you say people are upset, he was still elected.
Sure, and I think it's different now. He had Hillary Clinton as a punching bag, and the choice was between him and Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton had historic high negatives for a presidential nominee. We don't know who the nominee is going to be, but my guess is whoever the Democratic nominee is not going to have negatives as Hillary Clinton did. She was a household name going into that race and had a lot of baggage that these candidates aren't going to have. Now, it's possible they could be defined early. We'll see. But when an incumbent president's up for re-election, the onus is on them to convince the voters that they deserve to be re-elected. That's the first big step in an election. And I think Donald Trump is doing damage. Now, the one thing going for Donald Trump is he's a master at changing the script. And we often, remember something that happened 3 days ago, and it seems like 2 years ago, because he churns out controversy after controversy after controversy.
Again, you're a Democrat, and that's from your perspective on what he just said.
Yeah, I kind of disagree, because you don't know who the Democratic candidate is, and most of them I don't see as very appealing to the voters. Their lack of experience, some of their radical views, and what they're proposing in terms of socialist ideas and free health care for all, one universal health care and free college education and things like that are very radical, and they may not have the negative personality that Hillary Clinton had, but they certainly have negative ideas that may not resonate with the American people, and I think that that's going to be a big factor, especially if you look at how the economy is going to be next year, and I think that will affect how voters vote.
I want to get into that aspect in our second segment, but I want to kind of wrap it up on this element here. And it goes back to one of the first questions I asked, and that goes to, would it be healthy for Donald Trump to be challenged in the primaries, as some Republicans are saying right now?
I disagree with that. I think he's the president, and from my opinion, he's doing a good job, and I disagree with Mike on the fact that he's low in the poll. It depends on who's doing the polling. From what I understand, he's in the 40s, the mid-40s in some of the polls, and when you compare it historically with other presidents going for re-election, that's a pretty good position to be in.
But we have seen just recently a number of, especially senators, speak out now against some of his policies and some of his ideas, and that was not happening before.
Well, I don't know about that. I think that people have spoken out against his policies even when he ran the first time, even the Speaker of the House and the former presidential candidate Mitt Romney. So he's been able to overcome all that opposition, and maybe in spite of that opposition, because I think a lot of people see him as shaking things up, and they're tired of leaders who say one thing and do another thing.
All right, we will be back in just a moment, and we're going to put you a little bit more on the hot seat here. We've talked a lot about Donald Trump right now. We'll talk about some of the Democratic candidates and the Democratic Party and what it has to offer in 2020 when we come back.